Where were you born?
I was born in a 3-story white house on West Broadway. It's now the parking lot for Southwestern Bell Telephone.
Southwestern Bell.
The Gall Clinic's what it was called. My folks lived in Fairview at the time. We moved here when I was about 3.5 years old. We moved to Enid. Lived in a little cabin out on North 4th Street. Had lots of red ants, big ones. If you got bit by one, Mom would put bluing on you. You don't even know what bluing is, do you?
Machinery bluing? No?
It was a liquid stuff they used to whiten clothes when you washed them. Bluing.
What were your mom and dad's names?
Where were they from?
What were their names?
Their names?
Yeah.
Harry and Thelma.
Harry and Thelma.
Harry Arthur and Thelma Minnie.
And your mom's maiden name was?
Bose. I had one older brother at that time named Joe. Next.
And when did you move to Enid when?
Do what?
When did you move to Enid?
January of 1950.
And then you moved, and then what did your dad do? Is he at the ice place?
Well, my dad, when we lived in Fairview, he moved houses. He was a house mover. And before we left Fairview, he went into the pest control business. And that was the reason we moved to Enid, because he thought it'd be a better place to base it out of.
Where'd you go to elementary school at? Where'd you go to elementary at?
Elementary, I started at Lincoln. Then I went to McKinley. And then Garfield. Graduated 6th grade at Garfield, went 7th and 8th at Longfellow, 9th at Emerson. Then to Enid High.
What was your first job?
Sanford Stunkel Drugstore, delivering medicine on a bicycle. Early day drug pusher, or peddler, I guess. Rode the bike all over Enid, even after dark.
How old? How old?
About 14, 15. Then I went from Sanford Stunkel to Wood Pharmacy. He had been the pharmacist at Sanford Stunkel, and he bought one of the other Sanford Stunkels. And a couple of weeks after he opened it, he asked me to come and be his delivery boy. Then I went into the pest control business when I graduated.
With your dad or with?
With my dad.
What was the name of that? Last name?
Then it was Willie Kilpest. He had a franchise with a company out of Weatherford, Oklahoma. Then I went to work for traffic control with the city of Enid in the sign department, paint and sign department. Then I worked about a year for Pepsi-Cola. Then I went back into the pest control business, I guess. And, well, I got married somewhere in there before that. Then,
How did all that come about? How did that come about?
she made me say I do. said, you made me say I do.
So you was what, 17? How old was you when you guys met?
When we met, I was 17.
She was 20?
No. How old was you when we met? 19? 19.
How did you meet?
Church. Her sister and brother-in-law moved to Enid, and she came with them to help them get settled with the kids, and never left.
What'd you do after you went back into pest control?
I did that, I guess, until 73. Well, then we moved to Oklahoma City, and I worked at the Assembly of God headquarters for 3 years. Then we come back to Enid, and I went into the carpet cleaning and custodial business. Then through that, I went to work for Page Belcher and spent about 30 years there, taking care of his rental properties. And towards the end of that time is when I started doing signs at home, and then 1970 we opened the sign shop, and the rest is history.
And so how did you miss the draft for World War I?
I had a bad knee. Yeah, World War One. How about Vietnam? I had a bad knee, and the doctor said it wouldn't hold up to combat duty. Plus, we already had you at the time.
What year were you born?
1946.
So that would have been World War II, right?
It was just over prior to that. I think it ended in 45, wasn't it? Yeah. Yep.
So do you remember, like in the 60s, what do you remember about everything that was going on? I mean, the hippies, the war, the Martin Luther King assassination, all that kind of
I was too young paying attention to it, I guess.
stuff. You don't remember any of that stuff?
Not really. I remember it happening, but I remember the day that I was a senior in high school when John Kennedy was assassinated. I'd went home for lunch, and I was driving back to school, and it came on the radio, and I turned around real quick and went back home and told Mom, and then I went to school and was telling kids, and nobody had believed me. Till a little while later, the principal came on the intercom and told us. It's a lot of silence. Nobody could believe it.
Yep.
Can you tell us about the best year of your life? Probably around March 1989.
The best year of your life is March 1989. That's when he was born.
So you moved to the city at some point.
Well, we moved there twice. We moved in 1970, and I worked in the deaf church. Then we came back to Enid, and then 3 years later, we moved back to the campgrounds.
First time was only like 6 months.
Huh?
First time was like 6 months.
It was about 9 months, I think. Worked for Unit Parts, rebuilding master brake cylinders.
At the deaf, where did you do that at?
Unit Parts.
In the city? So you was working at the church and there? So you was working at the church and there?
Yeah, we just helped at the church and built a new church we started it while we were there.
How come that didn't work out?
Wasn't making enough money. Had to pray food in. We had to pray our food in when we lived in Oklahoma City the first time. We had to pray our food in the first time we lived in Oklahoma City.
And then you moved to the city again 3 years later, worked the Assembly of God campgrounds.
Which they just recently sold. Yeah, it was an enjoyable 3 years. Met a lot of people. And Dad passed away and we moved back to closer to Mom.
That's why we moved back.
Pretty much, yeah.
What else have we done? Vacations? Any cool vacations?
Not that many. It's one regret I have. I think the best vacation was that year we took a pop-up tent trailer and went into Arkansas and just really didn't have any deadlines or anything. We just, if we liked the place, we'd stay. If we didn't, we'd move on. That was an enjoyable one. When you was just about a year old, we went to California. Went to Disney World. You remember that?
Nope.
Or Disneyland, I guess, in California, isn't it? Knott's Berry Farm.
Did I like it?
I don't remember. We took Grandma Bose was with us. She had to ride in the front because she'd get car sick, and Bill, my cousin Bill, was with us. And back in the old cars, if you're sitting over in the passenger seat and you looked at the speedometer, it always looked a little faster than what you was actually going. And when Bill and I'd be driving, we'd catch Grandma looking over there, and then she'd bow her head and start praying. Grandma Bose.
What was your first car?
First car was a 1952 Ford. Loved that car. It'd been nosed and decked. You know what that is?
Nope.
It's where they removed the chrome off of the hood and the trunk and had a lever inside the back door that you pulled to open the trunk because there was no keyhole or nothing on it. And it had been lowered in the back end, and my dad had drove it on the road doing pest control work, and motor went out of it, so he got another vehicle, and we went up to Manchester, Oklahoma to a salvage yard and bought a motor for it. And on Labor Day weekend, we put the motor in it, and he told me when I got it running, I could have it. And so every night after school, I was out there working on it. Learned a lot. It taught me to not be afraid to try things, because I think I put the transmission in it about 3 times before I got the clutch and pressure plate in it right. No flathead V8. Then I had a 56 Pontiac. That's what I had when I met her. 56 Pontiac. She loved that car. Then I went to a Falcon. They were pretty new then. Hadn't been out but a couple years.
How much did that cost?
I don't, probably $1,000. Probably a couple thousand brand new back then.
So you never became a hippie or anything?
Hmm?
You never became a hippie?
No,
Never had your hair grow out?
no.
No?
Used to have a ducktail when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Had a ducktail haircut. That was a fad then.
What's the worst thing you ever did?
Worst thing.
Stole anything?
The worst thing.
Better not
I
say
think it was when Haley was born.
Worst thing you ever happened.
Of course, picture, you know. Out at the mall there was a place that developed, and the pictures would roll off of the machine, and you could stand there in the window and look at them as they came off. And I grabbed a roll that Greg had finished and took my roll and went out there, and I'm standing there looking at them, and a couple we knew from the church came by, and they're standing there watching the baby pictures fall off, you know. I think it was Haley. And then all of a sudden there's a picture of Christy with her bare fat belly showing. That was before you put things like that was on Facebook, you know, because we didn't know what Facebook was. But other people kind of stopped and looked, and then did you know that, Christy? Do what?
I thought they asked the worst thing you ever did.
I didn't hear you.
the most embarrassing thing.
What'd you say?
Nothing.
She said I thought it was, what's the worst thing you ever did?
Well, taking your film.
Gotcha.
You've always been a goody-goody two-shoes, huh?
Yep.
I don't think he wants to share.
What's your first memory of Jesus?
Just been a part of all of my life forever, because my folks were in church and got saved when I was about 5 years old. The lady that was teaching my Sunday school class is still alive. She's like 92.
She wasn't very old then.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't very old then.
70, yeah, she was a young gal.
You've been a teenager.
Mm,
How old are you? Oh, wait. How old are you? 77? 76?
77.
Yeah, she would have been about 20, 21.
Huh?
Probably 20, 21, somewhere there.
Yeah, somewhere in her 20s, because you had the 5 years off of that or onto it or whatever you do.
So where was your first date? Or who was your first date? Let's go back to first.
I think it was Nancy Mangrum. There's only 3. She was the third one. He was my third date. You was my third date. Then Joyce Christensen. It's Joyce Cahey. That was short-lived.
Both of them?
No, Nancy and I went together for a little while, then they moved away, and
How old was you then?
16, 17. Do what?
She said you moved quick if you got married at 17.
Yeah. We meet in October. Got married in August, so from October to August.
Less than a year.
We 17 months before we got married.
17 months.
Back then you had to be 21, the guy did, to sign for marriage license. And back then the courthouse was all open. It didn't have the walls around the different departments. Just had a counter around each one of them. And my dad had to go with us to sign, and Dub was about 10. And he asked Dad, he said, "Why are you having to sign that?" in a loud 10-year-old voice. And Dad said, because he isn't old enough to sign for himself, and in a louder voice, seems like anyway. He's like, "I'll never get married till I can sign for myself." Embarrassed me to death. Dub at the courthouse. When he turned 21, he was working at the district office when I was up there. And I told Brother Goggins, the superintendent, about it. So on Dub's 21st birthday, Brother Goggins had his secretary type up a legal document and notarized it and everything that I was giving Dub permission to get married now.
What was your first computer?
Epson. Actually, it was hers. A friend of ours, Sam Dickerson, he worked for Epson Computers. And Connie had got a new one, his wife, and she gave Judy her old one, but she never did get into it, and I did. And then I had one built at Midwest Computers, I believe. It cost a little over $2,000 to have it. But that was cheap for a computer back then. Old floppy disk drive.
5.5 inch.
Yep. And the printers were, what was it, dot matrix? Is that what they called them? Had the whole perforated paper.
I remember drawing on that at your house. You always had stacks of that at home.
Yeah,
You draw on it.
yeah. I don't think I've had anything but HP since then.
The dot matrix printer was like the first banner printer. Just like kept going.
Yeah,
Happy birthday.
yeah, yeah. No printers and computers. Yep. Yeah, you could print out long stuff.
So you went to high school at Eaton High. Did you play any sports at all, any time in your life?
Nope.
What did you like to do growing up?
Well, I played, neighborhood kids and things, but when I was in the first grade, I was sick a lot, and I finally was diagnosed with rheumatic fever and a heart murmur. So all through my grade school years, I missed a lot of school. In fact, when I was in the 5th or 6th grade over at Garfield, the principal told me one day I was going to fail if I didn't quit missing school. And when I went home and told Mom and Dad, well, Dad went up there and talked to her, and she kind of changed her tune then because she thought I was just missing. I wasn't able to be real active when I was a little kid. Was sick a lot. I asked my heart doctor here a year or two ago. I said, I don't hear much about rheumatic fever anymore. And he said, well, it's still out there. And I told him that I'd had a rheumatic fever and a heart murmur. And he said, boy, none of it shows up in any of your tests or anything. My dad used to tell everybody I had romantic fever.
Oh yeah. When did you become a clown?
When did I become a clown?
You've always been a clown.
When did I start dressing up like one? For your first birthday party. I remember I thought this will be a breeze, just be 10 kids. But then I found out you don't go to the skating rink when there's 4 other parties going on. You're dressed like a clown, you got all of the kids. I like to blow my brains out, blowing up balloons.
So it was probably around 2 or 3, I think.
I think you was about, you was 4 or 5, wasn't you? Do you remember? I don't remember. Somewhere around that time. That was the first party I'd ever done.
What's the scariest thing you ever done?
Do what?
What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
Got stuck under a house. Or I thought I was. Said the scariest thing that ever happened to me is when I thought I was stuck under a house.
And how old was you then? 45, 50?
Probably. I grew up under houses because Dad been in the termite business, and tight didn't mean nothing to me, but boy, it did that day when I thought I was stuck. I came up between 2 pipes that I'd tried to go through before and couldn't get through them, so I had to go a different way. What happened, I was running a drain pipe for Leon Stevens for his washing machine and didn't notice that it ran right through the crawl hole that was in the kitchen floor. And when I seen that, it scared me, which was stupid because I could have kicked the pipe out, or I had a hacksaw, could have cut it out. But I come back up between those 2 pipes that I couldn't go through before. I bruised myself all the way up and down, but I come out of there. I haven't liked tight places since.
Are you more like your mom or your dad?
I'm more like Mom or Dad.
I think probably it will be both.
We had a lot of experiences out on the highways. We traveled a lot, done pest control work. But I remember one time we was going to Alva, just out north of town. We had a flat. Didn't think much about it, 'cause back years ago, the old nylon tires, flats were pretty common. But we got out and changed it and got back in the car and didn't drive a half a mile, and it was a real bad. Where you was born, went to school,
Must have stood up.
and all of the boys that you kissed.
I was born in Hominy, Oklahoma. And my mom and dad were real poor. And was a farmer. And when it came time for me to be born, we went to my daddy's cousin's house, which we were very close to this cousin. And because of my aunt and uncle, but anyway, I was born in their home. The country doctor came in and delivered me there at my aunt's house. And we lived around the Wynonna, Hominy, Pawhuska area, a bunch of different places. And by the time I was about 5, I had ruptured appendix, and my parents didn't know what was wrong with me, and I knew I was hurting. And finally, they went into town and had my pastor pray for me. And but they got worried and they drove me to Oklahoma City to the hospital. And that's when we found out that my appendix had ruptured. And so I spent probably almost a month, I guess, at least 2 or 3 weeks in that hospital. And I was so sick, they had tubes running down in my arms and my ankles, draining poison down my body. And I got where I couldn't walk. So I was just 5, so they had a bed with rails around it. And when I first started getting up, I hold on to the rails, trying to walk around the edge of the bed. And finally, they got me up in a wheelchair. And there was this girl who was a teenager, had been burned real bad. She was in the hospital. But she became my friend, and she would push me around all over the hospital. And to this day, I wish I found out who she was. But anyway, I had to learn to walk all over again. After we got up, I had to use the crutches for a little while to support myself. And then we went back home, and we lived out in the middle of it was kind of a cow pasture. The house was over where cattle guard go into where the house was at. There's longhorn cattle all wandering around the house all the time, so we had to be careful going outside. And I remember my sister and I being chased up on the chicken house by one of the cows. So we climbed up there to get away from them. We had to stay up there until the cows went away. But during the time I was growing up, when I was this small, we lived with my grandparents for a while out on the farm, and there was no modern utilities out there at all. So we had to pump water out of the well, and Grandma cooked on a wood stove, and had an ice membrane ice in to put it in an ice box when we needed to keep something cold. And just a lot of memories I have from out there. My grandpa had a big watermelon patch. And I remember we'd go out in the watermelon patch and get a big watermelon, break it open and eat it. And I can remember riding on the wagon pulled with horses. So he sold cream and milk in town, so he had his wagon and his horses. And I can remember riding with him. He'd take the cream and milk into town to sell it. And so I had a lot of these experiences of the old times, when no modern utilities, outdoor bathrooms, taking a bath in a wash tub with water heated on the wood stove. And then by the time I started school in Hominy, and then we left there and went over by Wynonna. But then I went to Burger, Kansas for about a year and a half, and then we went to Stinnett, Texas for about a year and a half, and then back to Okemah, Oklahoma, and lived there for a few years, and then went to the country church. And I remember my dad was 6 other girls and plus my parents. So there was 8 of us, and Daddy always bought Studebakers, and they're very small, and we all crammed in a Studebaker. and I'd go down this sandy roads to church with a body car dragging on the roads. And then by the time I was about, so we went to the 5th grade, we moved out in the country in the same area, and I went to the one-room schoolhouse. One teacher, and all 8 grades were on that one room. So we started in to have the older grades would help the younger ones. But the teacher would give the lessons for the older, the 8th graders and the 7th graders and go down, and then the older kids would go down and help the younger ones with their lessons. And then we left there, we moved to Perry. And that's the longest I ever lived anywhere until I came to David. I spent 5 years over there. In, let's see, it's 4 years in the country school, a place called Tuskegee. And then to Perry, I was there for 5 years before I moved over to Enid. So by the time I was growing up, I don't know, I lived in so many houses, probably about a year and a half, 2 years. One place just moved around all the time. Then my dad was in the oil field by that time, so he was being transferred from one place to the other in the oil field. But I have a lot of nice, good experiences with my dad, since there were 6 girls and no boys. Well, I took the place of the boy with my dad. I went everywhere with my dad. We went fishing. I helped him with the butchering and all that kind of stuff. And we went fishing. We spent the night down on the riverbank, sleeping on a blanket, and cooking over open fires. And so we had a lot of good memories with my family when I was growing up. But then I started school in the 9th grade with Perry, and because of my hearing, I was very withdrawn. I was never longer, and I went into the school was huge as far as I was concerned. I was used to being into a one-room school, and went to Perry. It used to scare me so bad that I was sick every morning. And I got told my mama, I'm not going back to school. And I didn't for that 1 year. I stayed home because they couldn't get me to go. So finally, that summer, the school counselor came out and talked to me and persuaded me to go back and still try again. Said she would talk to the teachers, be sure I had a front seat where I could see them and lip reading. So I barely made it through 9th grade and then finally graduated in the 12th grade. It was very difficult, and I felt like a lot of what I learned is from reading, because I couldn't understand a lot of what the teachers were saying, but I read a lot, and I spent lots of times at the library. I would go down to the library and come home with a big old armload of books all the time. And so I was kind of a loner, but I liked to read, and I liked to draw, and then by the time I graduated, it was 63, and I went to Oklahoma City for about a month, I guess. I lived with one of my cousins to babysit for them, but I didn't like their lifestyle. It was really bad. So I went back home, and then my sister Joyce and her husband were transferred over here to Enid for a job, and I came with her. She was pregnant at the time. So I came with them to help her get settled in, and I got over here and I started going to church, and I met all the kids, and I'd never had much of a social life before then, but when I met all the kids over here in the church, and they just dropped me in, made me feel welcome, and then I tell my sister, can I stay one more week? And then I said, can I stay another week? And I just kept on, and finally, we started dating, and I didn't want to go back home. I went back for a few times, just for a week at a time, but more or less I stayed over here with my sister, And we got married 10 months after we met. So, I didn't really know each other that well, but I knew right away that he did too. We met in church. And the strange thing about how we met, I don't know what he told you about how we met. But you didn't tell him that. But there was a ramp where you came in church. There's a ramp that goes up in the auditorium. And I came in with that morning and said that he noticed me. Well, I think he fell in love with me at first sight. But anyway, it was while we were just running with the same group of kids, and we would go out in church, get coke, things like that. And so we were dating for a while, actually. We were just running with the group. And finally, he got brave enough to ask me to go out by himself with him. And we started going out to places like drive-ins, get a coke after church, things like that. And the first time he kissed me was we were with a friend. We took them, drop them off at their house. And while they were in, he would surely kiss me on the cheek. And but we go to this drive-in called Navajo. I don't know if anybody's ever heard it, but that was our favorite place to go. And that's the first time he held my hand. It's at the Navajo drive-in. And at church, we would come in, and we liked each other, but we were both very shy. So I would come in, I would sit down on the end of the pew, and he would sit on the other end of the pew. But our friends would come in, well, instead of letting them climb over us, we kept scooting in, and we'd get together in the middle. So I don't really remember the first time we went on an extra date. But we went out after church a lot. We go get cokes and drag around, drag Grand. Grand was the drag strip at that time. And I know from there on we're going to be fine. Somehow we started talking about getting married. He hadn't really proposed, but we were talking about getting married. And then when he was going to give me an engagement ring, and I told him I wasn't going to marry him until he asked me. So finally, he got up the nerve to ask me if I would marry him. And then we set a date. And it goes on from there. But after we got married, I got pregnant the third month, within the third month after we were married. So he was born right before our first anniversary. We lived in about how many houses did we live in before that time? About 3. Okay, we had already lived in 3 houses. By that time, I don't know how many times we moved. And then after he was born, we moved, I think was it Oklahoma? We moved to Oklahoma after he was born. North Davis.
North Davis.
Okay, we moved to North Davis after he was, I know, he was just toddler. And I was pregnant with Shriva then. And we went through some real low financial times, the early years of our marriage. We had, I went to work for Pepsi Cola for a while, and made about
Worked for the city of Enid first.
But what?
City of Enid first.
Oh yeah, he went to work for the city of Enid. So he worked for the city, and then went to work for Pepsi Cola. and he made about 65 a week. I think he made $65 a week, guaranteed pay. He didn't make much commission over that. So we struggled for a long time. There was time I can remember doing the laundry in the bathtub. I didn't have a washer. I actually got in the bathtub. I was pregnant with Treva then, and I would get in the bathtub. I was on my walk on the clothes to plunge them around to get them clean. And excuse me. So because of my upbringing, I had all this knowledge of how to survive in bad times. I knew how to do laundry when you didn't have anything modern. And so I've had a lot of experiences, and then we moved out on Purdue Avenue. Miss Tree was born while we were out there, was she? Okay, we're out on Purdue across Smith Fairgrounds. And Treva was born out there. We lived there. I don't remember how many years. But anyway, Treva was one. And when we started learning sign language, and she learned signs before she could talk. And so I remember a lot of expenses we had out there. And then we moved to
Broadway. Broadway.
Okay, we moved over on East Broadway from there. And then that's where we lived. We went to the city the first time, Dale City, really. And we were only up there about 8 months, and that's where he's talking about a while ago about having to pray for food. So I remember we got to a place one day that we didn't know what we was going to feed the babies. We didn't have any milk. We didn't have any food from or anything, and I just prayed. And I told the Lord that if you want us to stay here, then make things get better. But during that time, before we moved, we had a friend one day who was really low on food and stuff. And there was a lady came by, and back then they had commodities. And they had a whole bunch of commodities that they didn't know what to do with, so she brought them a bunch of big old boxes of food. There was cheese, oatmeal, I don't know what all we had in those commodities, so we were fed. That's one of the times that the Lord performed a miracle. That lady had no idea that we needed it. But the Lord sent it to her over there with that food. And then things didn't get any better for us, so we moved back to Enid. And that's when we bought the house over on Hemlock from one of his mom's cousins. You remember that one? And when we bought that house, it was in really bad shape. There was a garage apartment behind it. And we had to clean it up first. And then we had been living with his parents in a little 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, bathroom house, just right down the road, until we got the house ready to live in. And this house, and the Lord worked, the lady that lived there, she had made a braided rug out of rags, and then she started in the middle of the room, and she had nailed him, just right, and put wall-to-wall rug in a huge living room dining area with nails about that far apart. So
Everything from roofing nails to 16s.
I remember him tearing it out. I remember that.
Yeah. And then we got the apartment cleaned up. We moved in there and lived in the upstairs brunch apartment until we got the house clean, livable. And do you have any experiences up in that apartment? I can't remember much, but
I just remember my stories. I don't know.
Where he jumped off the back of the van and tore
Yeah.
his leg up. Where he jumped off the back of the van and tore his leg up.
and cut his leg open on the
Took a
license
big old
tag.
chunk about that deep out of my
That was
shin.
awful. They came down and it cut down through the flesh and they turned it out.
Landed on the license
and
plate. Just took a chunk out of my
so
leg.
They cleaned it up, put it back in there, sewed it all up, and I had to dress that wound every day for a while till it healed up. But then we later, I can't believe it now, but we resold that house. We paid $5,000 for it, and we went back to the city where we lived on the semi-by campground. We sold it for $8,000. Had it been worth a lot today? But anyway, we lived up there in Oklahoma City for about 3 years. And then we came back. There was no way for him to go making, how do you say that?
What?
Living there, you couldn't get him.
No advances.
As
No.
high up as I could go.
We was always going to be there, have nothing of our own, you know. So we came back home, and we lived, the house where we live now is the first house we looked at, and we drove up in the driveway with the realtor, and I looked at it, and I think, there's no way, that's too small. But I went in, I was surprised at how much room that house had in it. So we bought that house, and then we started being foster parents in 70 what? Early 70s. We became foster parents, and we at one time we had 6 kids in the house where we're at. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms with 6 kids, 1 bathroom, and then we bought a big 3-story house. Had 8 bedrooms, and we lived over there for about almost 3 years. Was it 3 years? But at that time, he lost his job, and then we couldn't afford to keep the house up. And the guy that we bought it from, he wouldn't work with us. He told us either pay the payment or we'd have to let it go. So his boss had bought our house where we're at, and so he let us go back over there and pay him down payment what he had paid us as a down payment, and then take up the payments again. So all the years our kids were growing up, we had foster kids for probably about 20 years. But I lost my thought.
The rest is history.
Anyway, so we lived there. We're still there after 47 years.
47 years total, I mean, since we first
Anyway,
bought
our
it the
house
first time.
payments were only $175 a month. No?
It was 125
Oh,
when we bought it.
$125 a month. And
That
so
included
for
taxes
years,
and
we
insurance.
paid like that. And that's in the old days before they raised all the interest rates. But we finally got the house paid for, and then the insurance and taxes cost more than our house payment. And before it was included. So we're still there.
Crazy.
And I remember babysitting Cody, the first grandbaby. We sat there in the living room on the end of the couch. We read storybooks and memory cards, flashcards, all that kind of stuff.
Made me an advanced student.
Huh?
Made me an advanced student.
What he said, maybe what?
I don't know, she said something.
He said that's why we're not as smart, because they used all your energy on him.
Say that again.
I said that's why Austin and I aren't as smart because you used all your
Oh.
energy on Cody.
That's why though they're not as smart because we used it all up on him.
Well,
That's why my dad's so
babysit.
dumb, because I got all his
Yeah.
knowledge.
But we
She
had
saved it all up for you.
lots of good memories. But I babysitted with her for 5 years. I told her you were about 5, I think, when she was born. And then, Christy, your mom quit working, and so I didn't get to babysit Haley very much. But I babysitted with Austin and Brittany a lot. And sometimes I'd have they lived out there in Perry Acres, and I would go out there a lot, pick them up or take them home. Most time, pick them up at school or take them home. But most of the memories of babysitting, it's just when we played games like in the wintertime. We made snowmen, snow forts, all that kind of things in the backyard. I don't know if you remember any of that. You were pretty small.
Nope.
Man, I had a lot of good memories, but I still have that book that you would learn to read in. Got words, pictures, and he would tell me the different words, what they were.
Can I borrow it?
Huh?
I said, can I borrow it?
Let's see.
What is the worst thing you've ever done?
The what?
The worst thing.
The
you've ever
worst
done.
thing. The worst thing.
You don't like that one?
I'm an angel. Do I have a worst thing? Have then?
Can't talk about it.
Oh, I remember one thing that really scared me. When I grew up, where I grew up, we were very, very strict. Religious background. We weren't allowed to go to movies, go skating, anything. They were pizza parlors because they had alcoholic drinks there. I couldn't go skating because there were music. And so that's the way I grew up. But anyway, I think I was in the 3rd grade, that my school class was going to go to a movie, a Walt Disney movie. Well, I wasn't allowed to go to movies. Well, my mom wrote me a note to give to my teacher that I couldn't go. Well, I got to school. I was scared to give it to my teacher. So I went to the movie. And I don't remember much about the movie. I was sitting there waiting for the Lord to strike me dead, send me to hell. But for years, every time I would smell popcorn, I would think of that movie theater because of that smell. When you go in, the first thing you smell was popcorn. But I love popcorn today. So that was one of the scariest times, I think, when I was growing up. Because I was just my parents were so strict, my church was strict, And I didn't really understand all of it, except that you're not supposed to do that.
Wild.
Yeah. So, actually, none of it hurt me. I mean, I see now that I've grown up, a lot of it was unnecessary, but I know that it didn't hurt me.
She didn't realize that until after I was grown up, though.
You would?
Said you didn't realize that until after I was grown up.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get to go to no movies. I didn't get to go to no dances. Smoke a cigarette. Smoke a cigarette. You ever smoked?
Oh, but not really. I went home with my girlfriend from church one Sunday, and her dad smoked. And we went, got his cigarette stubs, and went out the back in the woods and decided to try to smoke. Well, I took one whiff of that, and I started coughing. I about choked half to death. And that scared me. I never touched them again. So to this day, I've never smoked and I've never tasted alcohol. I was just, I'm not going to say it's wrong, but it's for me. So that was actually two real scary instances because it was just, I thought it was going to go to hell.
Tell me about your necklace.
Huh?
Your necklace.
Oh, Christy, your mom made that for me years ago. And so I gave her your Christmas. I get it out and wear it.
When she comes to our house.
It's made out of an old clothespin. I don't throw things away if they're usable, if I like them.
We know. We know.
For the record.
But you've got more than we do.
Got any questions?
I don't know what else to say.
It's all good.
What was your mom and dad's name? What was your mom and dad's names?
Well, my dad's real name was Silas Henry Heisel, but he went by Shorty when he was growing up, because he was short. And as when he got grown, they called him Short instead of Shorty. So most of the family called him Short, and my mom's name was Omi Jane. And so it was Short and Omi Jane. Then my mom started to go by Jane years ago when she got older.
Are you more like your mom or your dad? Are you more like your mom or your dad?
Probably my mom, aren't I? But
Your
maybe
dad was nice.
my dad was real quiet. And so I think maybe I got some of that from him. But I've got a lot of my mom's ways, the way she said things, she did things. So I learned a lot from her and how to cook and sew, you know, all the domestic type stuff.
What's the worst thing he ever did? What's the worst thing he ever did?
Who you talking about? Me? Oh,
Worst thing you ever did.
that she's gonna admit to.
That you know about. That you know about.
Yeah, that I know about it. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't get myself in trouble.
Practicing his violin.
Mm-hmm.
Practicing his violin.
Oh, yeah. He was supposed to be practicing. He hear us coming. He would turn the recorder off. I mean, he'd turn the recorder off and pick up his violin.
Did I tell you that story?
We all know.
Oh, yeah.
I figured you'd heard it.
We've all heard it.
You can tell the record.
Huh?
You can tell the record.
No. I had an old tape recorder that had the little push buttons on the cassette tape, and I taped my whole 30-minute practice session at home because I hated playing violin. The only reason I played it was because I played it in 5th and 6th grade because it was a required thing, and I wasn't going to play it anymore. My 6th grade graduation, they bought me a violin for my graduation. So instead of saying anything, I just played it for the next 3 years. and so then I taped 30-minute deal, and then I would just stand at the door watching, make sure they wasn't coming, play the recording the whole 30 minutes. But that's why. That's why I'm in it. Yes.
Oops.
That's why I was always last chair.
I wonder why.
Still had that violin, but all the strings have gone off of them. It's just rotted.
Didn't need them anyway.
Mm-hmm. Sounds better without them. Sounds better without
You could have
them.
been the Kyle Dillingham.
But his
No,
nickname being
No, I couldn't
the
have.
oldest was Oops.
Yeah, just think you could have been that.
That's what his
Greg.
dad students called him because he don't play Oops.
Yeah, that's something to be proud of.
What's the biggest miracle you've seen?
The what?
What is the biggest miracle? Miracle?
Me?
You?
That's been a lot of times. Like when I had ruptured appendix, and they didn't do surgery. I was so sick, and the doctor said I'd be better off if they just didn't do any surgery on me. So I survived that. And it's been several times that I've been really sick with things that I probably should have died, but I didn't.
Yep.
But the Lord just took care of me. But I just remember I've seen a lot of miracles, like he talked about, going to that miracle services. And it was just amazing to see all the actual miracles right there in front of our eyes. How God raised people up off the stretcher that was supposed to be dying. They got up, ran around the auditorium. A little boy had never walked, and they prayed for him. And he started walking and running across the platform. And I saw blind eyes open, deaf ears open. And it's just amazing. I don't understand why it's not happening today.
Yep. When did you lose your hearing? When did you lose your hearing?
Well, I don't know for sure if I was born hard of hearing or if it happened later, but I had all the childhood diseases like whooping cough and measles and all that stuff, and it could have damaged my hearing. But my parents were sure I was hard of hearing till I was 5 when I went to the hospital with my appendix. And the nurses and doctors at that time told them that I was not hearing well. But I could hear pretty good. I could hear enough with my hearing aids. I started about 14, I think, when I started wearing hearing aids. When I sang in church with my sisters, they would work with me, help me with it, and I could sing well enough to sing with them. But then, by the time I was about 21, it had gone down so low that I could not understand words anymore. Even with the hearing aids, I hear the sounds, but my understanding was just not there. And it's gotten worse since then.
So could she hear you when you started dating? When you started dating, could you hear him at all? Or did you always lip
I
reading?
wasn't what you was
When we
talking.
started dating, could you hear me?
Oh, I could hear him, but I thought some, because we were married when I got bad, where I couldn't understand words anymore. I could actually talk on the phone. Most of the
Flashlight's
time.
on. Got it.
People just talk real slow and clearly to me.
You afraid of the dark?
But
Is it dead or is it still going?
I'm still going. Checking.
the hard thing about not being able to hear is I miss music.
That would be hard.
And people, a lot of people
Sure,
will
make it a
tell
lot
me you're
easier.
so lucky not to be able to hear all this noise. By talking about babies crying, kids yelling, I said, no, I'm not lucky. I would love to be
Do
able to
what?
hear those babies crying, and I would love to hear those kids yelling,
Yep.
and they just don't understand how important your hearing is to you.
I didn't use it very long, but it sure helped when I
So I miss
couldn't sit down.
being able to hear things. I don't even care what it is as long as it's noise.
Yeah.
Definitely helps.
That's understandable.
Like when he was talking earlier, I didn't understand much of what he was talking about. He doesn't move his mouth much when he talks, and it's hard to lip read.
What do you?
I can tell you, when I was in second, third grade, my nickname was Dumbo the Elephant because my ears were so big.
Dumbo the elephant.
Did that hurt you?
It probably did. I don't remember, that it did, but it probably did.
It's hard to ignore when you can
Of
hear
course.
everything.
I went by Carol till the seventh grade, and I got a lot of teasing.
Funny thing about my ears are small, and my daddy used to joke about it. He said I couldn't hear because I didn't have anything to hear with. I remember after my dad passed away, my sister told me that Daddy had said something about wanting to learn sign language. And she asked him why. He said, because I want to talk to my daughter. And that was just, but I know that when I get to heaven, I'm going to sit down and have a good conversation with my dad.
Yep.
We've had our hardships, ups and downs through life, poor times and better times, but it's been a good life. Have no regrets.
Except him.
I was gonna say Treva, but I was gonna say Treva.
She's not here to defend herself.
Mm-hmm.
Got any questions, Haley? Anything you'd like to know?
I asked them when they came to me,
Yep.
which wasn't much.
How'd they
Kind of answered a whole lot.
how'd they survive after missing the boat at Noah's boat?
Nova's?
Noah's.
No.
Like, who the heck is Nova?
Did you ask her about her boyfriends?
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about your boyfriends.
My boyfriend, I didn't really have any.
Tell us what you had. Tell us what you had.
Well, after I graduated from high school, this guy had gone to our church, but he was backslid, and actually his parents were real close to me, and I would fix his mom's hair every week. And but he was out running around partying. He moved to California. While he was out there, he got in some kind of trouble, and finally ended up going to jail. Well, he started writing to me, so because of my way I was, that I'm feeling inferior, my inferior complex, I fell for that, And he proposed to me in a letter. I'd never had dates with him or anything, but I was going to marry him. And that's when that's one great miracle right there that God moved me to Enid. He saved me from that. Because when he got out of jail later, he went back, he married a woman and had a whole bunch of kids. And he was drunk. He drank, he beat her up and stuff like that. And I thank God every day that he brought me out of that before I ever got into it. So that's when I met him.
He's only beat you the one time.
What?
He's only beat you the one time.
I've only beat you one time.
No. I don't think so.
You don't remember.
I beat him up every morning. He's still asleep when I get up.
Didn't used to be that way.
Yeah.
Said it didn't used to be that
I
way.
know. I'm up about 5:30, 6 every morning. Sometimes earlier, he's sound asleep.
Hope you're enjoying my cashews.
What?
She robbed, I got a big jar of them. She robbed them.
Well, I appreciate her doing that.
She robbed my cashews.
Oh,
I never had cashews covered in anything.